How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm going on spring break next week. I haven't done anything. Kids. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks to Metro State for hosting this event, and a special thanks to President Arthur and our student representative, Emma. You'll hear from them later. My name is Grace Arnold. I'm the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Commerce, and we are here today to talk about Student Loan Borrower Bill of Rights and our Student Loan Advocate. So the Department of Commerce, one of our core strategic priorities is to reduce economic barriers, and we do that in many cases through consumer protection. So if you leave here today with one thing, I want you to know that if you're a student loan borrower, you have rights and you have help. Most students are coming out of their degrees. In 2021, a bachelor's degree, a student came out with an average of $24,000 in debt. If you get up to like an MD or a JD, you're looking at $140,000 in debt. If you're a student that's coming out of, you have a lot of exciting possibilities, and that debt can bring a lot of stress and anxiety. So we have a number of tools at the department, and we have a number of ways that we can help. We look at the companies to make sure they're obeying state law, and we have an advocate that can be there to help you if you are having trouble with your company. You'll see later today there are some do's and don'ts about what student loan servicers are required to do. We're there to enforce that and make sure that those happen. So we're there on your side. You've got rights, and you can have help. I'd like to introduce some of the legislators that helped pass these laws. There were two, one in 21 and one in 23. So I will hand it over to Commerce Committee Chair Zach Stevenson.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Arnold. Thank you for being here, everyone. Today, my name is Zach Stevenson. I represent Anoka and Coon Rapids in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I chair the Commerce Committee and was the author of the Minnesota Student Borrower Bill of Rights. The student loan debt crisis is gripping America and is real here in Minnesota as well. Nationwide, students owe over $1.7 trillion in student loan debts. That's the second largest category of debt behind only mortgage debt. And this has real consequences. It's having people delay important life decisions, buying houses, starting families. The system is also incredibly complex, and it's very easy for students to make a mistake that will live with them for years and years and years. But fortunately, here in Minnesota, we've passed some really strong protections designed to curb the worst abuses of the student loan industry, protect borrowers from being misled or deceived by the servicers, and put someone in their corner, a student loan advocate, to help them when they need help getting out of trouble. I'm really proud of the work we've done in the legislature to help Minnesota students, really proud of the work the Department of Commerce is doing to protect Minnesota students. There's more work to be done at the Capitol. We're hard at work on that this year to enhance those protections, but thrilled to be here today in recognition of this Borrower's Bill of Rights and the advocate position. And happy to turn over to my friend and partner, Senator Jang.
Yeah. Thank you, Representative Stevenson. I'm Senator Jang from Senate District 44, and I carried the student loan advocate legislation last session, and I would like to thank the Commissioner, the Department of Commerce, and the Metro State and President Arthur for welcoming us here today to talk about this important piece of legislation. It's really exciting to see things going off the ground since the legislation passed last year. But, you know, when I was carrying the bill, Minnesota had the 5th largest student loan debt in the country. For Minnesotan student loan debt was around $37,000. And so it's something that it is at a crisis level. And, you know, would like to thank our colleagues in the state legislature for coming together and getting this legislation passed. And now we will have a student loan advocate that will fight for, on behalf of students, help folks navigate the complex system that comes with taking out a loan, dealing with servicers, learning about what sort of loan forgiveness programs that are available. And so we're hopeful that this will be the start of a new chapter in trying to address the student loan crisis. And so with that, I thank you all for joining us. And I would like to invite President Arthur.
Well, thank you, Senator. Well, Metro State University is one of the 7 state universities in the Minnesota state system. And we are one of the most affordable college educations in the state. We rank 22nd in the nation and first in Minnesota on CollegeNet's Social Mobility Index, which measures colleges and universities' success in elevating students from the lowest income strata to at least the middle class by 5 years after graduation. We provide an excellent return on investment to our students, and yet they still struggle with student loan debt. Most of our students are working adults, supporting themselves and their families. They need loans, of course, for tuition, fees, books, and supplies, but they also often take loans to meet their critical basic needs like housing, food, childcare, healthcare, and transportation. At Metro State, we really focus on having multiple approaches to educating and advising our students on the loan borrowing process. We start right at the point when they are first interested in pursuing their degree. Our admissions staff will talk with students about the varieties of financial aid, including loans, and what might be the advantages and pitfalls. During enrollment, we have many different programs as well to continue to support our students. We host financial literacy events, we provide entrance counseling, exit counseling, explain their promissory notes to them, make sure that they understand the true cost of borrowing. However, once they walk across the stage and graduate, they're on their own, and they are solely responsible for figuring out how they're going to repay their loans. The pause on repayments during the pandemic actually added an extra layer of confusion for borrowers. I know from personal experience, my son, who has a PhD in engineering, asked me to help him figure out his loan options, loan repayment. I'm a university president. I was pretty frustrated and very challenged by the process. Well, given the multitude of changes to student loan programs over the years, the Department of Commerce's Student Loan Advocate and the Borrower Bill of Rights are important strides in assisting students in navigating those processes with servicers to explain their rights as borrowers, to license and examine the servicers, and to assist with complaints. Metro State is excited to share the news of the advocate and the borrower rights of protection with all of our students and our alumni. And I am proud to say that the information is already up on our website. We are so thankful for the continuing work of the Department of Commerce and the support of our legislators in helping those students who graduate to become the contributing citizens of Minnesota that we all need. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Emma Gabbert. Emma is a graduate student in our Masters of Advocacy and Political Leadership program, and also serves as a graduate assistant in the Metro State Office of Equity and Inclusion. After completing her graduate program, Emma would like to work in accessibility resources at a university to help neurodiverse students overcome obstacles to their college experience. Emma is here with us today to share her own personal experience of navigating student loans. Emma?
Hello, everyone. I first want to thank Carrie Carroll for inviting me to speak today. I have a lot of experience with student loans, unfortunately. In my senior year of high school, my mom was diagnosed with stage 3 sinus cancer, a very rare diagnosis that required treatment at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. Before her diagnosis, I still would have needed student loans, but I wouldn't have had to max them out. But I did end up taking out the maximum amount of loans in my first 2 years of undergrad. In my last 2 years, I was blessed with $40,000 in scholarships from various institutions and nonprofits, and this cut my debt in half of what it could have been, so I am very thankful for that. But in my experience with federal loans, I did not qualify for most federal aid. My mom is a single mom with a good paying job, but the government did not take into account that she is the sole provider for our family, paying for my daycare while being a working mother and all other expenses that go into being the head of the household. I was in school during the payment pause, so I wasn't paying my student loans anyway. However, shortly after graduating, the state and federal student loan services started asking me for payments. When I decided to go back to graduate school, I knew I couldn't afford to take out any more loans, so I dipped into my savings that I had saved up from working part-time while in my undergrad. And after my first semester of my master's program, I loved it, but I became very worried of how I was going to pay for it. Thankfully, I was blessed to be offered the job of graduate assistant for the Office of Equity and Inclusion here at Metro State, and they provide tuition reimbursement for my master's program. And so now I am in a place where when I graduate from my graduate program, I can end my time paying off a large amount of the debt I accrued in undergrad. I think it's important to address some of the misconceptions that exist about student loans. One of the most common is that this money is available to me, therefore I should max out the entire amount for a rainy day fund or other expenses. I would advise not to do this. My advice to students is just beginning their education is to only take what you need to cover tuition, room, and board expenses. It is tempting to take the full amount the government is providing you, but you will have to pay this money back with interest. Another misconception is that since the Biden administration discussed student loan forgiveness, people should wait to pay back their loans until that is passed. As we can see, there are roadblocks to getting important legislation passed, and so my best advice would be to pay off your loans as soon as you can. The SAVE plan does allow graduates to pay based on their income, but if you have the ability, try to reduce the amount of loans you have straight out of the gate. Now, during the student loan pause, people who qualified for the public service forgiveness loan lost 3 years of payment toward their 10-year requirement. President Arthur was just discussing that with her son, and the default for the student loan, the public service student loan forgiveness, was to pause your payment. And so many people would have chose to pay during that time, but they were not aware that they are able to do that. And so while the student loan repayment pause was helpful, there wasn't enough information out there for people to really utilize that information. So in their journey to have all their student loans forgiven, they are now 3 years behind because they were not made aware of that. When we look at legislation that is passed, it's important to look at all sides of how laws will impact Minnesotans. As of last year, there are 43 million student loan borrowers in the U.S., and they have borrowed more than $1.6 trillion in federal aid. The student loan advocacy position will provide much-needed guidance for college students. Financial literacy is a skill that can be used in all aspects of life. This will truly help students understand the scale of the loans they are taking out and the process of paying them back. Thank you all for being here. I have hope that we can make progress towards the student loan debt crisis and throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma, and legislators and President Arthur. We can take questions now.
I'm curious if, since the pause, you've seen an increased demand for those programs to help students. and also what you've been hearing from students since that pause ended.
Sure. So since we don't administer those programs, then we don't necessarily know like complaints that are coming directly in. What we do know are complaints that come to us. We can get some data that our position was hired at the end of last year, so the historical data is not super long, and the law has only been in place for a couple years. But we can pull some complaints. I think, at the end, it's confusing no matter what, if it's a pause or not. And so part of what our student loan advocate will do is education and is doing education, and then part is assistance. So if you can have all the financial literacy in the world, and if you're a student loan borrower, won't call you back, it doesn't matter. So that's what we're there for, to help you be able to, take the actions that you need to do and understand what your rights are in taking those actions.
Let me pass this to you. Do you feel the borrower's Bill of Rights goes after more of the private loan servicers than the federal government? Or, it would apply to all of them, it seems, but is the private loan servicers that tend to have the higher interest rates, are they the ones that are kind of more problematic?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have data on that, but we can look and see. I think, your rights are your rights, and so if you're a borrower, then whichever way you choose to take out the loans, we're there to help.
Can I speak to that real briefly? Actually, some of the servicing companies that service federal student loans are among the most challenging actors in this space. The biggest controversy around student loan servicing, just in terms of number of people impacted over the last several years, has been about the public service loan forgiveness program, which those are entirely government-issued loans, and they're serviced by one service provider. It's been different service providers at different points over the last several years, but there are incredible horror stories of people who, took low-paying public service jobs, anticipating forgiveness, only to run into barrier after barrier after barrier in trying to get their loans forgiven. And that was a driving push for getting the original Student Borrowers Bill of Rights passed, was the experience in particular of teachers who had used that program to finance their education and then were caught in a system where they couldn't cut through the red tape and get the forgiveness that they were entitled to.
So this is just making clear to the borrowers like what they have to do, on behalf of students to make sure that they're aware of all of their options, basically.
So the Student Borrowers Bill of Rights prohibits a whole bunch of bad practices in terms of deceiving borrowers, misapplying payments, steering borrowers into bad repayment programs that don't achieve goals. The Student Loan Advocate, which we passed last year, puts someone in the corner of the student. So if you were a teacher with public service loan, hoping to get public service loan forgiveness, and you get caught in that sea of red tape I mentioned, now you have someone you can turn to who can get you to the front of the line with your servicer and fight for you to make sure that you get the forgiveness that you're due if you've done your public service. But also if someone has a payment that's been misapplied or they've been steered into a repayment program that doesn't work for them, they can go to the Student Loan Advocate and have those questions answered and have someone back them up when they go to their servicer and ask for results. We've all had the experience of sitting on the phone for a long time, maybe with a student loan company, but maybe with a bank or someone else. It's really frustrating when you get caught in an endless phone tree or anything else. Now you have someone that you can go to help you cut through that and get the results that you need.
Yeah, we have partnerships. Oh, sorry. Yep, we work closely with our other state partner agencies, and both on the education and outreach sort of component of the advocate position and on the enforcement component, because both are important, right? It will take both to make sure that Minnesotans who have student loan debt are protected as they should be.
So if someone calls in with an issue, will they be directed to you, or how will that work?
If you got directed to me, that would take a while. No, we have a human that's there. You can file a complaint. You can look at our website, and we kind of outline the steps that you would need to do. But it's only one human at this point, so we'll see if he gets overwhelmed. But he's doing a great job so far, and can help. Has a good knowledge of the system and the enforcement tools that we have at the department, but also has a really keen kind of sense of what you need to do to make people understand the system that they're working in, and to be able to say, and one of the reasons we're here today is to say, hey, this feature exists in state government, and we can be here to advocate for you.
Just to clarify that, I don't mean you personally, but I mean
Yeah, no,
your
I know.
organization. But say someone goes to the AG's office, which is where a lot of people have gone in the past, or the Department of Higher Education. How are you guys working together to make sure people are getting to the right place?
We're sort of, it's a new position, right? So we're trying to make sure we have efficient processes, and I think we'll probably have a couple cycles of learning as any new process does, but we're in close contact with them to understand complaints that are coming into us, understanding complaints that are coming into Office of Higher Ed and the AG's office, and triage and get to the right, in some cases the AG is the right place to be, and so, but people don't need to know that. We can know that, and we can just get them to the place that can help them. We can send it, yeah. It's on the back right here. Yeah, there's even a QR code to file a complaint.
Is Minnesota unique in offering this? Or is this something that other states are doing, or is this something that's kind of pretty innovative because of the work that we do to support our students in Minnesota?
There are other states that have passed similar legislation, but we were one of the early adopters of passing a student borrower's bill of rights and having a student loan advocate.
Right now, it's the one person who's the advocate. It's not like that they have a team that could field calls, or is that the idea that there might be some staffers allocated to that?
Yeah, so in the budget bill last year, we had one position. We have an enforcement division, so Jackie right here leads our enforcement division. That division looks at all kinds of enforcement cases, right? Insurance, banking, we do all kinds of things. And so there's support because we know how to do enforcement complaints. So that it's not just like a single person on an island that can never get help. We also have a team that is looking at the finances of the student loan companies so that they're not, sort of investing badly or have business practices kind of on their balance sheets. And so there's a team that's doing that too. But it's helpful to have a person who's like the point to then, you don't need to know that necessarily, or a person who has a debt doesn't need to know the complexities of or exactly who has what responsibilities within Jackie's team or within the rest of the department. They can just know that there's a point that can help them get to the right place. And if we see lots of volume, we might be back asking for more money. We'll see.
It's a priority.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions? All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.